All right, strap yourselves in because today we are going deep into the absolutely wild world of Chinese social media.
Oh, yeah.
You guys have sent us a crazy amount of stuff about crazy little brother Yang, articles, audio clips, seriously, like the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
And it seems like you're really trying to figure out how he built this massive online empire.
Yeah.
And also why all of a sudden he's facing so much controversy.
Right.
And like what this whole saga means for the future of influencer marketing.
I mean, it's definitely a story with a lot of twists and turns.
Yeah.
So to start things off, let's talk about just how incredibly massive his success has been.
Yep.
His company, Three Goats, they reportedly sold over 50 million RMB worth of mooncakes in just 30 days.
50 million. Just from mooncakes. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, before we get to all the drama, and there's a lot,
No, there is.
I'm kind of curious about his backstory. How did this guy go from being like a small town kid to like an internet sensation?
Well, like a lot of successful influencers, little brother Yang, or like officially Zhang King Yang,
Right.
he started out with pretty humble beginnings.
Okay.
He grew up in rural Anhui province. His parents had to work away from home,
Oh, wow.
leaving him and his twin brother to be raised by their grandparents.
I see.
This is a pretty common story in China.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it really instilled in him this strong drive to succeed.
That makes a lot of sense. But it's really interesting is that even after he achieved this incredible wealth, he still kept this very like down-to-earth image, you know, like messy hair, gold chains, not like your typical CEO look.
Right, exactly. That's like part of his charm. It's his brand. He comes across as relatable, like he's just some regular guy that made it big.
Yeah.
But actually, his path to fame wasn't exactly a carefully planned strategy.
Yeah.
Back in 2018, a video of him getting pranked with exploding ink went viral, and boom, suddenly he had 600,000 new followers.
Oh, wow.
That's when he kind of realized it seemed like that people really loved to see him get messed with.
So he just like leaned into it, huh? He turned getting pranked into a whole brand identity.
Exactly. And it wasn't just him. He brought in his entire family, his mom, his dad, even his grandma.
Wow.
Creating these recurring characters and storylines, it was like watching a live-action sitcom unfold with all the slapstick humor and family drama.
I have to admit, I've spent a few late nights myself watching those videos.
Oh, yeah.
There's something about them that's just so addictive.
Absolutely. They're incredibly well made. They tap into that desire for escapism and just lighthearted content.
Yeah.
But the real turning point in his career was when live streaming started getting big in China.
Ah, yeah. This was like when e-commerce just blew up over there, right?
Yes.
We've all heard the crazy stories about top live streamers selling billions of RMB worth of stuff in a single session.
Exactly. But surprisingly, little brother Yang's initial attempts at live streaming weren't actually that successful.
Oh, interesting.
Even with his huge following, he was only selling a few thousand products per session, which was tiny compared to what his peers were doing.
So how did he turn things around? Like, what was the secret sauce that launched him into, you know, the stratosphere of live streaming success?
Well, it's kind of a happy accident, actually. He met another influencer named Annie,
Okay.
and she introduced him to this strategy called reverse marketing.
Reverse marketing. That sounds kind of counterintuitive. Is that like telling people not to buy the product?
Well, not quite, but it's definitely not conventional.
Okay.
Instead of hard-selling products, they started pointing out flaws.
Oh, wow.
Making fun of themselves. They'd even intentionally damage the products on camera.
Seriously? Like destroy things on purpose just to make a sale?
It sounds crazy, but it worked.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. You're watching this live stream, and instead of seeing the usual over-the-top praise, they're just being honest.
Right.
Even self-deprecating. You start to trust them more because they're not just trying to shove a product down your throat.
So by being vulnerable and transparent, they actually built more trust and credibility with their audience. When you think about it, that's actually a pretty smart strategy.
Absolutely. And they didn't shy away from the absurd. We're talking like chewing on slippers, aggressive face washing with cleaning products.
Wow.
They basically turned their live streams into these crazy live comedy shows, and people loved it.
Okay, so from exploding ink to chewing on slippers,
Yeah.
it's safe to say crazy little brother Yang totally lives up to his name.
Definitely.
But let's talk about the results of all of this. This is where the whole like rags to riches part of the story really takes off, right?
This is it.
From humble beginnings to one of the richest influencers in China, what can you tell us about the scale of their success?
Think major celebrity endorsements like Stephen Chow, Jackie Chan, even NBA star James Harden, all appearing on their live streams.
Wow.
They even held a massive free concert for their fans, that cost an estimated 30 million RMB.
30 million for a free concert? That's insane. And their company, Three Goats, did they really hit billions in annual revenue?
The reports are pretty staggering. In 2022, Three Goats had over 10 billion RMB in sales.
Wow.
And then that number more than tripled in 2023. We're talking about a company with over 2,000 employees, and their monthly salary bill is reportedly 50 million RMB.
This is mind-blowing. So who's the brains behind this crazy business growth? I'm guessing it's not just little brother Yang and his family.
You're right. There's another really important person in this story.
Okay.
Douyin. He's this savvy investor who bought a 49% stake in Three Goats back in 2021.
So he's the one who brought in the business structure, the supply chain expertise, and the financial backing they needed to really grow so fast.
Exactly. Douyin's investment was a total game changer.
Yeah.
It gave them all the tools they needed to become the powerhouse they are today.
Okay, so we've got this incredible story. Small town kid, stumbles into fame, finds his niche, builds this billion-dollar empire.
It's an amazing story.
But as we know, this fairy tale takes a pretty dramatic turn.
Oh, yeah.
And it all seems to unravel with a mooncake.
Ah, yes. The infamous Meicheng Mooncake. This is where things start to fall apart. But before we dive into that scandal, let's zoom out for a sec.
Okay.
And talk about influencer marketing in China, how it works, what makes it unique.
Yes, I've been wanting to understand that better. What makes it so different from what we see in the West?
Well, one of the key differences is how the Chinese government regulates the internet.
Okay.
Especially social media. It's a much more controlled environment than in the West. There's a strong focus on maintaining social stability.
So influencers in China have to be way more careful about what they say and do online?
Absolutely. They're always having to be aware of the political situation.
Yeah.
And make sure they don't cross any lines that might be seen as sensitive or disruptive.
So it's like this constant balancing act.
It really is.
How does that impact their content and the way they interact with their followers?
Well, for one thing, there's a lot of self-censorship.
Right.
Influencers know that if they push things too far, they risk getting shut down, getting fined, even getting blacklisted by the government.
Wow, that's a pretty strong incentive to stay in line. So how does little brother Yang deal with this tricky situation? I mean, he seems to be a bit of a rule breaker, at least when it comes to his comedic stuff.
True, but there's a big difference between being outrageous and being politically controversial.
Okay.
And so far, little brother Yang has generally been pretty good at not crossing that line, at least until recently.
Right, until this whole mooncake thing blew up. So let's talk about that. What exactly happened and why did it cause such a huge backlash?
To really understand how serious this is, we have to think about how important food is in Chinese culture, especially during festivals like the Mid-Autumn Festival, where they traditionally share mooncakes.
So it's not just about eating, it's like a deeply cultural tradition.
Exactly. So when little brother Yang started promoting this Meicheng brand, he marketed it as this high-end Hong Kong delicacy.
Right.
Using all the fancy words you can imagine.
Yeah.
Like Michelin-starred chef, national bestseller.
The whole shebang.
The whole 9 yards. And this created a lot of hype, especially because he was selling them for way cheaper than their supposed luxury price.
Yeah, they went all out with the fancy marketing, Michelin star chef, national bestseller, the whole shebang. But it turns out it was all smoke and mirrors. Well, actually, mooncakes and mirrors. So what was the catch?
Well, it turns out these mooncakes weren't even sold in Hong Kong.
Seriously?
Like they had initially claimed, and you could find them on other platforms for much cheaper.
Oh, wow.
It was a classic bait and switch tactic, playing on people's desire for a good deal and their trust in little brother Yang.
Oof. Yeah, that's not good. No wonder people were so upset.
Oh, the backlash was huge. All over social media, people were criticizing him, accusing him of misleading customers and taking advantage of their trust.
Right.
Even IKEA in Hong Kong got involved.
Oh, really?
They started promoting their own mooncakes with the slogan, "No Meicheng, just ice cream mooncakes."
Ouch. Talk about adding insult to injury, but it wasn't just the online stuff they had to deal with, right?
No, the local government started an investigation into Three Goats and their marketing practices.
Oh, wow.
State media even started criticizing them publicly,
Okay.
accusing them of false advertising and predicting their downfall.
So things are getting serious. This wasn't just some PR nightmare. It was a potential legal and reputational crisis.
Exactly. And this is where it gets worse. For little brother Yang, the mooncake problem was just the beginning. There were darker accusations coming out, whispers of an affair, a missing influencer, and some very serious claims.
Okay, things are about to take a dark turn here. We have to be careful. But I'm definitely curious to hear more about these allegations. Tell me about Momo, this influencer who disappeared. This part really freaked me out.
It's a very complicated story, with information coming from all over the place, some more reliable than others, but let's see if we can piece together what we know, or at least what's being said.
Yeah, let's stick to the facts as we understand them, being super careful not to spread rumors or things that aren't verified.
Of course. So here's the story. Little brother Yang had an affair with another influencer named Momo, who was also signed to his company.
Okay.
A little while later, Momo disappeared from the public eye. Her social media went quiet, and nobody seemed to know where she was.
That's already super suspicious, but when do the more serious accusations come in?
Well, this is where things get even darker, according to a few sources.
Okay.
Including this rival streamer Simba and another anonymous influencer who claims to be close to Momo. She supposedly got pregnant during her relationship with little brother Yang.
Oh, wow. Okay, this is already a really sensitive situation, but what happened after that?
The allegations get even more disturbing. These sources say that Momo was pressured into having an abortion, and then when she asked for a 3 million RMB settlement, they accused her of extortion and sent her to jail.
Whoa, that's heavy, and none of this has been officially confirmed, right?
Right. Little brother Yang hasn't really said anything about these specific accusations.
Yeah.
And we got to be careful about presenting things as fact when they're not verified. But the fact that these accusations are going around and that Momo has basically vanished is incredibly damaging to his reputation.
Yeah, it definitely casts a really dark shadow over his whole operation and raises some serious questions about how things really work in these influencer companies.
It does. And I think this is where we start to see that this is bigger than just one influencer's rise and fall. It makes us look at the ethical problems of the whole influencer industry.
Yeah.
Like the potential for exploitation, the lack of accountability.
Right.
It's a whole mess.
It is. And we can't just ignore these issues. They need to be addressed. So where do we go from here? What needs to change so this doesn't happen again?
That's a really tough question. There are no easy answers.
Right.
We need to talk about transparency, stricter regulations, and a fundamental change in how we see and interact with influencers.
Yeah.
But I think we should save that conversation for later, after we go through the rest of little brother Yang's story. And trust me, there are more twists and turns coming.
Oh, I'm definitely ready for that. Let's dive back in.
All right. You know, it's crazy how quickly public opinion can change online. Like, 1 minute you're the internet's favorite, and the next you're facing all this criticism.
Yeah, it's a steep fall from grace, for sure. And it makes you wonder, is this just like a temporary setback for crazy little brother Yang? Or is this like the beginning of the end for him and his whole empire?
It's really hard to say for sure. I mean, Chinese social media moves so fast, there's always a new scandal.
Yeah.
But this just feels different, you know?
I agree. It's not just about a weird product or some marketing mistake.
Right.
It feels like there's something deeper going on, like questions of trust, ethics, and accountability.
Exactly. And the fact that the Chinese government and state media are involved takes it to a whole other level.
Totally. It sends a clear message that they're not going to tolerate this kind of behavior.
Yeah, the Chinese authorities are super sensitive to anything that could cause problems, you know, especially online.
Yeah.
And influencer marketing is definitely on their radar. I mean, it has this massive reach, and it's often totally unregulated.
Right. So let's zoom out a bit and talk about the bigger picture here. What does this whole situation tell us about influencer marketing in China? I mean, this isn't just a little brother Yang problem, right?
Absolutely not. He's just the most obvious example of a much bigger trend.
Okay.
There are tons of influencers in China, many with huge followings and the power to influence what people buy.
Yeah.
But the industry has grown so quickly that the laws haven't kept up.
It's like a car speeding down the highway with no brakes.
Perfect analogy. And like we've seen with little brother Yang, that can lead to some pretty bad crashes.
So how do we like pump the brakes on this runaway industry? What are the solutions?
Well, it's a complicated problem, so it needs a complicated solution. For starters, we need to be clearer about what counts as false advertising when it comes to live streaming and influencer marketing.
Okay.
Right now, the rules are kind of blurry, and it seems like influencers can get away with almost anything.
It's like the Wild West of marketing. Say whatever you want, make crazy claims. As long as you're selling, nobody cares.
Exactly. And that's why people are demanding stricter regulations, tougher penalties for breaking the rules, and more oversight of the whole industry.
That makes sense. If you're going to make money from promoting a product, you should be held responsible for what you say about it.
Absolutely. But it's not just about government regulations. There also needs to be a change in attitude.
Okay.
More focus on ethics and responsibility within the influencer community itself.
It can't just be about getting famous and making money, right? Influencers need to understand that they have a responsibility to their audience to be honest and promote products they actually believe in.
Couldn't agree more. Consumers also have a role to play in all of this. They need to be more careful, more critical of the information they see online, and less influenced by hype and trends.
So it's about developing healthy skepticism, learning to think for yourself and not just believe everything you see.
Exactly. It's about making informed decisions, and ultimately that's what will force the industry to change when consumers demand better brands, and influencers will have to step up their game.
So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Consumers need to be smarter, but they also need better information, clearer rules, and more accountability from those with influence.
Exactly. It's a complex system, and everyone needs to work together to make it more sustainable, ethical, and beneficial for everyone involved.
Well said. You know, one thing that really struck me about the Little Brother Yang case is how much power these top influencers have.
It's incredible, isn't it?
We're talking about individuals who can make or break a product, mobilize millions of followers, and even influence government policy. That's a lot of responsibility for anyone.
It is a huge amount of power, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges facing the influencer marketing industry right now, how to manage that power responsibly, how to make sure these platforms are used for good, not just for profit.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the hype, the follower counts, and the money, but at the end of the day, it's about people.
Right.
It's about the impact these platforms have on individuals, communities, and society as a whole.
And that's why the Little Brother Yang story is so interesting. It's a perfect example of the ethical dilemmas we face in this digital age.
Yeah.
It's a story about the temptation of fame and fortune, the dangers of unchecked power, and the struggle to find meaning in a world driven by algorithms and online personas.
It's a story that's still being written to, full of twists and turns. Speaking of twists and turns, there's another layer to this story that I think is worth exploring: the role of the Chinese government in shaping the influencer landscape.
Ah, yes, the invisible hand guiding the market. This is crucial to understand.
I'm curious to hear your perspective on this. How does the Chinese government approach influencer marketing? Is it all about control and censorship?
Well, it's no secret that the Chinese government is very active in regulating the internet. Social media is no exception. They're constantly watching what's happening online, censoring content they don't like, and promoting their own narratives and agendas.
Right. It's a very different environment from what we're used to in the West, isn't it? Where freedom of speech is considered a fundamental right.
It's a huge difference, and it creates unique challenges for influencers in China. They have to constantly be aware of the political situation, careful not to cross any lines, and willing to cooperate with the authorities when necessary.
So it's like walking a tightrope, balancing the need to be entertaining and commercially successful with the need to stay within the boundaries of what's acceptable to the government.
Exactly. And that's why we see so much self-censorship among Chinese influencers. They know that if they push things too far, they risk getting shut down, fined, or even blacklisted.
So how does this affect the content we see coming out of China? Does it stifle creativity?
It definitely has an impact.
Sure.
You'll notice that a lot of Chinese influencer content focuses on lighter topics like fashion, beauty, lifestyle, comedy, things that are less likely to be seen as politically sensitive.
Right. It's interesting how these external pressures shape the creative landscape.
It's a complex relationship between individual commercial interests and government regulation, and it raises some thought-provoking questions about the future of influencer marketing in China. Will we see more control and regulation, or will the government find a way to use the power of these platforms while still allowing some creative freedom?
That's the billion yuan question.
It is, and it's one that will have a huge impact, not just for China, but for the global influencer landscape as a whole.
That's definitely a lot to think about. But before we get too lost in the future, let's come back to the present. We left off with Little Brother Yang facing some serious accusations and a potential legal battle. Where do things stand now?
Well, the investigation into Three Goats is still going on. The authorities are looking into their marketing practices, especially the mooncake scandal.
Okay.
And they're also looking into the allegations about Momo's disappearance.
So Little Brother Yang is in hot water. What's he been saying about all of this? Has he addressed the accusations?
He's been surprisingly quiet. He hasn't said anything publicly about the accusations regarding Momo, but he has apologized generally for any wrongdoing and promised to cooperate fully with the investigation.
So a bit of damage control.
It seems that way. But whether that's enough to save his reputation and his business is still unclear.
Yeah, it's a risky situation. His whole empire could collapse if things don't go his way.
Absolutely, the stakes are very high.
And what about Momo? Has there been any news about where she is?
No, unfortunately not. She's still missing. Her social media accounts are still inactive, and there's been no official word from her or her family.
That's so sad, and it just adds another layer of complexity to this whole story.
It does, and it shows the dark side of influencer culture, the potential for exploitation, the pressure to maintain a perfect image, and the risks of navigating this often unregulated world.
It's a reminder that behind all the glitz and glamour of social media, there are real people with real lives and real consequences.
Exactly, and as we keep looking into this story, it's important to remember that.
So what's next for little brother Yang? What are the possible outcomes of this investigation?
It's hard to say for sure, but based on what's happened to other influencers who've gotten in trouble with the authorities, there are a few possibilities.
Okay, let's explore those. What's the best case scenario for little brother Yang?
Well, the best case scenario is that the investigation finds that while there were some questionable marketing practices, there wasn't enough evidence of intentional fraud or criminal activity.
Okay.
He might get off with a slap on the wrist, a fine, a public reprimand, maybe a temporary suspension of his online activities.
So he could potentially recover and go back to his career.
It's possible, but his reputation would definitely be damaged.
Right.
And he would have to make some big changes to earn back public trust.
What about the worst case scenario? What are the most serious consequences he could face?
If they find proof of serious wrongdoing, like deliberate fraud, tax evasion, or involvement in illegal activities, the consequences could be much worse.
Okay.
He could face huge fines, a ban from social media platforms, or even jail time.
That's a far cry from the glamorous life he's been living.
It is, and it shows the risks of operating in this high-stakes world.
So what do you think will happen? You think little brother Yang will be able to save his career?
It's really hard to tell. It depends on the outcome of the investigation and how he responds to the accusations.
Right.
If he shows genuine remorse, takes responsibility for his actions, and makes up for any harm he's caused, he might have a chance at redemption.
But if he tries to minimize the situation, deny responsibility, or disappear from public view, his chances of a comeback are pretty slim.
Very slim. The court of public opinion is harsh, especially in the age of social media.
This is a fascinating and complicated case study. It brings up so many questions about fame, the power of influence, and the ethical responsibilities that come with it.
It's a story that's still unfolding.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how it all ends.
Well, I'm hooked. I can't wait to see what happens next.
I know, right? It's like a real-life drama.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, I think it's time to shift gears and talk about the broader implications of this whole thing. We've discussed the need for more regulation and accountability in the influencer industry. But what does that actually look like?
That's a great question. And it's something that experts and policymakers are trying to figure out right now.
So let's get into those discussions.
Well,
what are some of the specific measures being considered?
Yeah.
And what are the challenges in putting them into practice?
All right, so we've really gone deep into the rise and fall of crazy little brother Yang.
We have.
And explored this crazy world of influencer marketing in China. What I'm really thinking about now is like, what can we learn from all this?
Yeah.
Not just as consumers who are, trying not to fall for slick marketing, but as people who are just living in this digital age where like everyone's an influencer.
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
One thing that really stands out to me is just how important it is to think critically.
Yeah.
We can't just believe everything we see online, especially when it's coming from someone who's trying to sell us something.
Right. Like, remember that whole mooncake mess?
Oh, yeah.
They were pushing this image of like luxury and exclusivity imported from Hong Kong. But if you dug a little deeper, you found a very different story.
It just shows how easily we can be swayed by a good story.
Absolutely. We need to have that healthy skepticism, that habit of asking questions and looking beyond the surface. Like, do your research, compare prices, read reviews from different sources.
Right.
Don't just take an influencer's word for it, no matter how much you like their videos.
So true. Another thing that's been on my mind is that blurry line between entertainment and actually buying something. These influencer live streams are so fun to watch.
Oh, they are.
It's easy to forget that they're ultimately trying to get you to spend money.
It's a very deliberate strategy, and it works really well. They create this whole immersive experience, mixing entertainment, humor, and personality.
Yeah.
It makes you lower your guard and be more open to their sales pitch.
Right.
But it raises some ethical questions, especially when you consider how much they could be manipulating people.
Totally. It's not just about buying a product. It's about buying into a whole lifestyle, an image of who you want to be.
Yeah.
And that can be so powerful, especially for young people who might be more easily influenced.
That's why media literacy is so important, especially for kids growing up in this digital world.
Mm-hmm.
We need to give them the tools to understand what they're seeing, to recognize the persuasive tactics, and make smart choices about what they consume and who they trust online.
It's like that saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime.
Right.
We can't just tell people what to think.
Mm.
We have to teach them how to think critically, how to navigate this crazy media world.
Exactly. It's about giving people the power to be smart consumers of information, to recognize bias and agendas, and make choices that align with their own values and interests.
Yeah, but it's not all about individual responsibility, right? What about the role of platforms and policymakers in creating a safer, more ethical digital environment?
That's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
We need to have a real conversation about how accountable these platforms are, the algorithms they use to shape our experience, and the need for clear rules and regulations to protect consumers from misleading or harmful content.
It's like building a house. You need strong foundations, solid walls, and a good roof to keep everything safe and secure in the digital world. Those foundations are things like transparency, accountability, and ethical guidelines.
And just like a house, you got to maintain it, keep it up to date. We have to constantly evaluate and adapt how we regulate the online world.
Yeah.
Technology is always changing. New platforms pop up and influencers find new ways to reach people. It's a never-ending process of learning and adapting.
Speaking of adapting, what do you think about the future of crazy little brother Yang and his company? Can he recover from this, or is his career over?
It's really tough to say. He's facing some serious accusations, and the public is really angry. The Chinese government is also looking into his business, and that could have a big impact on his future.
But he's still got a huge following, right? Millions of fans who seem to be sticking with him through all this.
He does, and that's what makes influencer culture so interesting and complicated. People can develop these really strong connections with online personalities, that they're willing to overlook their flaws, their mistakes, even their bad behavior.
It's like they see them as friends or even family, not just entertainers or salespeople.
Exactly. And that loyalty can be really powerful. It makes it hard for people to let go, even when they see things that challenge how they see the influencer.
So it's possible he could make a comeback, rebuild his brand, but it's going to take more than just good PR.
Definitely. He needs to show real remorse, take real action to address the accusations, and make a sincere effort to earn back trust. And even then, there's no guarantee.
Right.
The Chinese government has shown they're not afraid to punish high-profile influencers who break the rules.
Yeah, it's a high-stakes game, and he's definitely playing with fire.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive.
It has.
We went from exploding ink pranks to billion-dollar live streams, explored the dark side of influencer culture, and really got into the ethical and regulatory challenges of this crazy industry.
It's a story that raises so many questions and makes us think about the opportunities and the dangers of the digital age. And like we've been talking about, it affects all of us as consumers, as citizens, as people trying to make sense of this increasingly complex digital world. So any final thoughts for our listeners as they sort through all this information?
I think little brother Yang's story is a powerful reminder that influence is a double-edged sword. It can be used for good, to entertain, to inform, to inspire.
Right.
But it can also be used to manipulate, to deceive, to exploit. It's up to all of us to be aware of the power dynamics, to think critically about what we're seeing, and to use our own influence to create a more ethical and fair digital world.
Well said. And on that note, we're wrapping up another deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep diving deeper.